Evelyn Hargrave stared at the numbers in the ledger, knowing the red ink marked the end of her life as she knew it. She was 32, unmarried, and terrifyingly close to losing her family home, Fairthorne. But the silence in the room felt heavy for a different reason. Thomas, the Duke of Carringham, had returned to the estate next door, and his shadow already stretched over her heart. "You could marry him," her father said, not looking up from his newspaper. Evelyn didn't answer. She just pressed her pen harder against the paper. He turned the page, the sound sharp in the quiet room. "Lord Wiltham is not young, but neither are you." She marked the ledger with a line that bled a little too dark. "Is this the conversation where you insult me into a proposal?" "It is the conversation where I remind you Fairthorne is 6 weeks from foreclosure." She closed the book. Neatly, calmly, as always. "There's no comfort in being right, Father, if it comes at the cost of my pride. Pride doesn't keep a roof over your head." "No," she said, standing up and smoothing her skirts. "But neither does a loveless marriage to Lord Wiltham." The knock on the drawing-room door was so light it almost wasn't there. "Miss Hargrave?" The maid's voice wavered as she stepped inside. "A letter. It arrived from Carringham House." Evelyn stopped walking. Her breath caught in her throat. "Is it a request for wheat or rent?" she asked, keeping her back to the door. "No, miss. It's marked personal, sealed, with his crest." The letter was heavy in her hand. Expensive. The seal pressed firm and clean, Carringham's falcon in perfect wax. Her father looked up, his eyes narrowing. "It's from him, isn't it? The new Duke." She said nothing. She just broke the seal. "Lady Hargrave, I'm returning to Carringham for the winter. The estate requires reorganization. Your knowledge of the tenant families would be of great assistance. I request a brief consultation at your earliest convenience. T.A., Duke of Carringham." She folded it twice, set it on the mantel without a word. "Well?" her father asked. "He's a duke now. He always said he would be something. He also said he would come back." She left the room before her voice could betray her to the man who raised her. 2 days later, the village square smelled of cold earth and burnt peat. Evelyn didn't dress to impress. She dressed to be remembered and ignored. Carringham House's gates were already open. The steward was waiting, formal and smiling. "You're expected, Miss Hargrave." She kept walking past him. "I'm not here for him. I'm here for the tenants." "Of course," the steward said, but his smile widened as if he knew a secret. The study door was already open. He stood at the hearth, tall, coated in navy wool, facing away from her. She didn't speak. He turned slowly as if he'd known she was there before she entered. Her name left his mouth like a vow. "Evelyn." She said nothing. She just removed her gloves, finger by finger. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Thomas said. "I almost didn't." He stepped closer, the firelight catching the sharp angle of his jaw. "But you did. Only because you signed it with a title," she said, her voice steady. "I thought you'd learn to write. I didn't expect you'd forget how to speak plainly." He didn't flinch, but his jaw shifted, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. "So this is how we begin. This is how you began it." He gestured to the chairs, his manner turning formal again. "Shall we discuss the tenants?" She sat without looking at him. "You're behind 3 years in land rotation. Crop diversity has failed. Half the farmers will leave by spring if you don't adjust rents." He watched her more than he listened. His gaze felt like a physical touch. "I read your letters," she added, staring at the rug. His head tilted. "You received them?" "No," she said flatly, finally meeting his eyes. "I read them. Then I burned them." The fire crackled behind him, filling the silence. "I suppose I deserved that," Thomas said softly. "No," Evelyn said. "You deserved nothing. That's what you earned. And yet, here I am." "I came back," he said quietly. "And 15 years later, that's supposed to mean something." He didn't answer. She rose to her feet. "You want help with your land. Fine. I'll give you what you need. But let's not pretend we're anything more than 2 people with a mutual problem." Thomas nodded once. And if I wanted us to be more? Then you're more foolish than you used to be. She left without waiting to be dismissed. That night, in the safety of her room, she pulled a small tin box from beneath the broken floorboard. Inside lay dried lavender, a coin, and a folded page. The letter was creased and yellowed with age. I'll come back for you. I swear it. Don't forget me. Thomas, 1798. She lit a candle. She held the paper close to the flame, watching the heat curl the edge. But she didn't burn it. He had come back. But he hadn't come back for her. He had come back for the land. She blew out the candle, leaving herself in the dark. Carringham House had always been larger than her own home, but it hadn't always felt so cold. The halls were quiet, not with peace, but with absence. Evelyn sat stiffly in the study chair, her gloves still in her lap, her spine straight and her chin high. She wasn't here to remember the past. She was here to advise on the future. Thomas arrived 3 minutes late. He walked in without announcement and without apology, but not without looking at her first. His eyes flicked down to her hands. He didn't sit behind his desk. He leaned against it, crossing his arms. I didn't expect you so soon, Thomas said. You asked for urgency, Evelyn replied, refusing to look intimidated. I assumed you meant it. A pause stretched between them. He smiled a little. You never gave me much room to exaggerate, did you? And you never gave me much cause to wait. That one landed. Thomas crossed to the fireplace and studied the cold grate, his back to her. You look well, he said quietly. I look tired. He turned to face her. I meant it as a compliment. I know what men mean when they say that, Evelyn said, her voice cool. They mean I haven't aged poorly. They mean I'm still passable for a spinster. Thomas moved back to the desk between them and set down a folded estate map. I meant that I'm glad to see you. Still, she didn't respond. Not to that. The desk was wide, but she still felt the heat of him. His scent was faint but familiar. Cedar, ink, and something colder underneath. She hated that she remembered it. I've reviewed your steward's crop notes, she said, unfolding the map to cover the silence. If you continue this rotation, you'll lose your oat yield by spring. He didn't look down at the papers. He looked at her. Do you remember the orchard behind Fairthorn? He asked. That stopped her hand mid-motion. You planted a plum seed there, Thomas added. You swore it would grow even though my father said it wouldn't. You cut your hand, digging the hole. He smiled, a genuine expression that made him look younger. And you cried more than I did. I was 7, Evelyn said, letting the map fall shut. I think about that every time I pass the orchard. You pass it often, do you? I rode past it yesterday, Thomas said. The tree is still there. She looked down, slowly pulling one glove off her left hand. I didn't come here to remember trees, she said. No, he said softly. You came here to help me fix something broken. That, Evelyn said, I'm very good at. He sat down, finally. Not beside her, but across from her, looking her directly in the eye. How long did you hate me, Evelyn? She didn't blink. Do you want an honest answer? I only ever wanted that. I hated you, she said slowly, until the day I stopped waiting for you. After that, I pitied you. And then, nothing. Thomas exhaled. It wasn't relief. It was acceptance. I wrote you, he said again, and I burned them. You burned all of me, didn't you? She stood up, smoothing her skirts. You burned yourself, Thomas. She left the map on the desk. Let him make sense of the fields without her. If he wanted to be a duke, he could act like one. She had no interest in teaching boys how to be men. I'll walk you out, he said as she reached the corridor. She paused. There's no need. I'd like to. I'm sure you would. He followed anyway. At the front steps, snow had started to fall, just barely, just enough to soften the edges of the path. Will you come back tomorrow? Thomas asked. For what? To finish what we started. Evelyn looked back at the great house. Its windows were dark. Its halls were colder than she remembered. Nothing ever finishes in Carringham, she said. "It only waits." He watched her walk away until she disappeared into the mist. Then he turned back into the house. In the drawing room, his steward was waiting by the fire. "Did she agree to help, Your Grace?" "She will," Thomas said, unbuttoning his coat slowly. "She doesn't seem inclined. She's angry, but she isn't indifferent." Thomas looked out the window again, staring at the empty drive. "She wore the gloves I gave her," he added quietly. "She probably doesn't even remember, but Evelyn did." As she walked home in the cold, she tightened her grip on the leather. She'd worn them to remind him and to show him that they no longer kept her warm. The plum tree still stood. It wasn't tall, and it wasn't straight. One side leaned heavily toward the earth, but it bore fruit most years, and Evelyn Hargrave had tended it without thinking for so long she'd forgotten what it meant. Until this morning. She stood beside it now, her gloved hands buried deep in her coat pockets, her boots sinking slightly into the half-thawed soil. Behind her, hooves approached at a steady, unhurried pace. He didn't call out. Evelyn didn't turn. "It still leans to the left," Thomas said as he dismounted. "I suppose it's allowed," she murmured, keeping her eyes on the bark. "It's earned the right." He walked closer, stopping a few paces behind her. "You planted it the year before I left." "I remember." "You were crying," Thomas said softly, "over your mother. She'd been dead a week. I didn't know what to say to you then." "You said nothing," Evelyn replied. "That part hasn't changed." Thomas flinched, though she didn't see it. "I wrote you," he said again. She turned to face him finally. "Stop saying that. It's the truth." "Then where were they?" "I waited. For weeks. For months. Every time the post arrived. I sent them, Evelyn. I don't believe you. I don't blame you." She looked back at the tree. A branch hung low, heavy with ice. "One of the letters came with gloves," she said quietly. Thomas nodded. "I remember." He stepped a bit closer. "So why are you confusing me?" he said. "I didn't wear them for years. It's as if they never came. I want to forget your existence. I kept them in the box. I wasn't sure if I hated you enough to throw them away, or needed you enough to keep them close. And now?" She pulled one glove off slowly, revealing her bare fingers, cold and pale against the grey sky. She flexed them once. "They still fit," she said, "but they don't feel the same." He stepped closer, breaking the distance between them. "I came back because of you." She blinked, her guard going up instantly. "Don't lie." "I'm not." "You're engaged, Thomas." His jaw tightened. The silence stretched thin. "That wasn't my plan," he said. "No?" Her voice dropped, sharp with hurt. "And what exactly was the plan? To come riding back into my life with a title and a smile and no apology? I didn't think you'd even speak to me." "You were right." Thomas looked at the tree. His eyes followed the old scar on the bark. 2 letters, barely visible now. T-A-E-H. A childish carving, a permanent wound. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "What is that?" Evelyn asked. "Something you never received." She hesitated, then took it. The parchment was old, smudged with what might have been ash. Her name was at the top, her full name, written in a careful, deliberate hand. She read the first line and her chest clenched. "I should have stayed, but I was a coward with dreams bigger than I knew what to do with. You were the only part of me that felt real. I'm sorry." She folded it again. "You expect this to fix something?" "No." "You think I've been waiting all these years for a scrap of paper?" "No." "Then why give it to me now?" "Because I should have given it to you then." Silence settled over the orchard. Only the branches stirred in the wind. He stepped forward again. "You asked me why I didn't come back." Evelyn didn't stop him. "My uncle sent for me," Thomas said. "He told me I'd be heir to the Carringham title. I thought it would take a year, maybe 2. I thought I could write, finish my obligations, and return. So what stopped you?" "His death, his debts, his legacy." She didn't speak. I was 20 and suddenly responsible for 5 estates, 100 tenants, and a seat in Parliament. My life became about duty and disgrace. You still could have written. I did. You could have visited. I wasn't allowed. Then you should have fought harder. I agree. That caught her off guard. Just enough. I never forgot you, Thomas said. You forgot how to find me. He nodded. That's fair. She looked down at the letter in her hand, then up at him. This changes nothing. I know. He turned to leave, gathering his reins in his hand. You'll still marry her, Evelyn said to his back. He stopped walking. I haven't decided yet. You already have, she said, or you wouldn't be here explaining yourself to me. Thomas turned back, and for the first time, he looked truly tired. I came back, Evelyn, even if it was late. She held up the letter. And I kept your gloves, even though I shouldn't have. Neither of them moved. Then she spoke again, softly, without anger. Some things don't fit the way they used to, Thomas, even if they still look the same. He didn't answer. He just bowed his head. She let the letter fall at his feet, and she walked away, leaving his words in the mud. The music was forgettable, but the desperation in the room was not. Evelyn Hargrave stood at the edge of the assembly hall, her gloved hands clasped tight, her smile fixed and her chin high. Around her, couples swept across the floor in well-practiced steps. Their laughter rang like bells, hollow and sharp. She didn't dance anymore. She couldn't afford to be that careless. A voice appeared at her elbow, smooth, low, and far too close. You stand too still, Lady Evelyn. People might think you're waiting for something. She didn't have to turn to know who it was. I'm waiting for the headache to end, she replied, staring straight ahead. Baron Cedric Wiltham stepped in front of her, a glass of wine in his hand, his eyes sharp beneath his polished veneer. I assumed I was the headache, Wiltham said. You're a symptom, Lord Wiltham, not the cause. He laughed, the kind of laugh people noticed, loud enough to draw eyes. She didn't return it. You haven't accepted my invitation for dinner, he said. I haven't accepted many things this week. You will, Wiltham said, taking a slow sip. Fairthorn's accounts are less than modest, Evelyn. You'll find appetite in necessity, if not affection. Threatening a woman with charity isn't exactly romantic. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Neither is freezing in a house you can't afford to heat. Before she could reply, the music shifted, and the steward's voice cut through the noise. The Duke of Carringham! Her stomach turned before she even saw him. Thomas entered alone. He was dressed to remind people who he was, a dark waistcoat, a silver pin, and white gloves tucked neatly under his arm. A pause rippled through the room. Then the crowd folded open for him, like fabric parting for a needle. He moved with the kind of grace people pretend not to envy, and he came straight to her. Wiltham didn't move. Thomas didn't hesitate. Lady Evelyn, Thomas said, bowing low. She held his gaze longer than she meant to. Your Grace. Thomas turned to the man beside her. Lord Wiltham, as always. Duke, Cedric answered, his tone cordial but clipped. Will you allow me this dance? Thomas asked, turning back to Evelyn. I don't dance, she said quickly. You used to, Thomas said softly. You said it made the world quieter. Then I was a girl, she replied. He extended his hand. You're not a girl now, but the world hasn't changed. She glanced around the room, the stares, the whispers already starting. She should have refused. She should have walked away. She took his hand. They stepped onto the floor as the music restarted, a waltz, gentle but steady. He led her as if he'd done so 100 times. He hadn't, but he remembered her rhythm like a second heartbeat. You shouldn't be here, Evelyn said, keeping her voice low. I was invited. By whom? Wiltham? She looked up, startled. Thomas smiled grimly. Didn't you know? We're becoming quite civil. You never were good at lying. I'm better than I used to be, he said. You're engaged, Thomas. He didn't flinch. Not yet married. And what would Lady Fortinrose say about this? She'd say it's unwise, unnecessary, undignified. She'd be right. He spun her gently, pulling her closer than proper society allowed. But you're still here, Thomas said. The world's watching us. I know. You're touching me. I know that too. Her voice dropped, thick with panic. Don't make a show of me, Thomas. I would never. You already did once. His hand at her waist tightened slightly. You're still angry, he said. I'm still standing. The music slowed. Their steps stilled. He didn't let go right away. You're not nothing to me, Evelyn, he said quietly. She didn't answer. Not until she saw Siltham standing just off the floor, watching them with narrowed, calculating eyes. Her voice was cool when it finally came. I can't afford to be something to you, Thomas. She stepped back before the final note played. Wiltham met her at the edge of the floor instantly. Interesting choice of partner, Wiltham said, offering his arm. I needed to remember something, she replied. What was that? She took Wiltham's arm and smiled without a trace of warmth. Why I stopped dancing in the first place. As they walked away, Thomas stood alone on the floor, surrounded by the hum of a room he didn't belong to. And Evelyn didn't look back. The invitation arrived in cream vellum, sealed in gold, but it felt like a summons to an execution. Lady Fortinrose requests the pleasure of your company for tea. Evelyn held it a moment too long before setting it on the mantel. Her father glanced up from the ledger, his eyes tired. You're going? Her father asked. She asked. She's not your friend, Evelyn. She's the future Duchess of Kerringham. Not yet. Close enough, Evelyn said. She holds the ring. That is close enough. He made a noise in his throat, a sound of disapproval, and returned to his sums. Kerringham's carriage arrived precisely at 2. The driver didn't look at her when he opened the door. Evelyn rode in silence, watching the familiar fields pass by through the glass. Kerringham House was warmer this time, not in temperature, but in light. The front drawing room had been opened. A fire was blazing. A silver teapot gleamed on a polished tray. Helena Fortinrose stood beside the window, possessing perfect posture and perfect poise. Everything about her said she was unbothered. You came, Helena said with a small, practiced smile. You asked. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't either, Evelyn admitted. Helena gestured to the chair opposite her. Please, I wouldn't have invited you if I intended to be cruel. Evelyn sat, keeping her back straight. I understand you've been advising His Grace on the tenants, Helena said. I've lived among them my entire life. I'm sure that has its uses. Helena poured the tea with practiced care, the china clinking softly in the quiet room. Thomas and I were at Lady Malvern's dinner last night. Helena said casually, You weren't there. I don't often attend. I imagine invitations to Fairthorne are limited these days. Evelyn stirred her tea once, keeping her gaze steady. I decline more than I accept. Helena took a sip. They're saying you danced. Evelyn froze. Just for a second. People say a great deal, Evelyn replied. With him. So it seems. Helena's smile never cracked. He's impulsive. He forgets how things appear to society. You know how men are. I know how some men are, Evelyn said. A pause stretched between them. I also know what it is to be promised something that never arrives, Evelyn added. Helena raised one brow. Is that a subtle accusation? It is a shared experience. Helena leaned forward slightly, her eyes hardening. You're very composed, Miss Hargrave. Most women in your situation wouldn't be. What situation is that? You love a man who left you, Helena said, her voice soft but sharp. And now he's returned, and he belongs to someone else. Evelyn set down her cup, quietly. Do you love him? Helena asked. I don't owe you that answer. No, Helena said, but you might owe it to yourself. Evelyn stood up. Thank you for the tea. You haven't finished it. It's gone cold. Helena rose too, smoothing her silk skirts. You won't win this, you know. I didn't know we were playing. Helena stepped closer, though not near enough to touch. You don't understand what men like him must carry. Dukedoms aren't made for hearts, Eveline. They're made for alliances. Eveline met her eyes. Then perhaps you're more suited to him than I ever was. She walked out before Helena could reply. In the corridor, she passed Mrs. Pritchard. The housekeeper didn't speak at first, only bowed her head respectfully. But as Eveline reached the heavy oak door, a quiet voice followed her. Don't let her decide what you are, Miss Hargrave. Eveline turned. Mrs. Pritchard was already walking away, her keys jingling at her waist. Outside, the snow had started again, soft, silent, and unwanted. Eveline pulled her gloves on tighter. She looked down at her hands. They still fit. But she was beginning to wonder if she wanted them to. The scent of stale pipe smoke lingered in the study, heavy and suffocating. Lord Hargrave sat at his desk, his fingers pressed to his temples. Eveline stood at the window, her gloves off, twisting the ring on her smallest finger, the one no one ever asked about. You're not listening to me, Eveline, her father said. I heard every word, father. Lord Wiltham is offering to settle the debts, the estate, the taxes, all of it. And in return, a name, stability. A cage, she corrected. He turned in his chair to face her. A future. Eveline turned from the glass. His future, not mine. Her father rose slowly. He was thinner than last winter, and she could see it in the way his shoulders slumped when he thought she wasn't watching. You're 32, Eveline. I'm aware. Do you think that world will wait forever? You have no dowry, no claim. You have no youth left to bargain with. I have a mind. That won't warm Fairthorn in winter. He meant it kindly. That made it worse. She crossed the room and picked up the letter left open on his desk. She recognized the seal instantly. Wiltham's crest, Wiltham's terms, Wiltham's tone. He wants the land, she said, reading the lines. Not me. Her father didn't answer. Have you accepted? She asked. Not yet. But you will. And if you don't choose something for yourself soon, Eveline, someone else will choose for you. She set the letter down without folding it. You don't get to say that, she said softly. You were the one who tried to hide the first letter. His eyes shot up. Guilt flashed across his face. The one Thomas sent the spring he left? She continued. The one with the gloves. You hid it in the ledger, hoping I wouldn't see it. He said nothing. You said it was better that way, that we couldn't risk hope on a boy who wasn't coming back. Still, silence. I didn't speak of it then, she said, because I thought I was supposed to trust you. Now I see what you were protecting was never me. It was your name. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. He sat down again, defeated. And he didn't ask her to stay. Outside, the sky had gone bone grey. She left the house before it could snow again. By late afternoon, the road to Carringham was wet and silent. Thomas stood outside the stables, his sleeves rolled up, his coat slung over a wooden rail. He didn't see her at first. She waited. When he finally looked up, the distance between them felt like nothing, not after what had passed, not after what had been withheld. You knew, she said. I suspected, Thomas replied, wiping his hands on a cloth. And you said nothing. I wasn't sure it mattered anymore. It always mattered. He nodded, conceding the point. What does he want? Eveline asked. Wiltham. Yes, he doesn't want a wife. He wants something else. Thomas picked up a cloth and wiped his hands slowly. Wiltham wants the river, Thomas said. He wants the right to divert it to develop the lower fields. If he marries into Fairthorn, he gains access to both ends of the water. And you're letting him? I'm not letting anything happen. You danced with me, Thomas. Then you stood by and let him make an offer on my life. Thomas tossed the cloth aside, his patience snapping. I didn't know he had made the offer. He did. He stepped closer to her. Then don't accept it. She laughed once. It was a dry, bitter sound. You think I have choices? You do. Then show me one. He hesitated. He looked at her, really looked at her. with a desperation she hadn't seen in 15 years. "Marry me," Thomas said. Her eyes froze. He meant it. She could see that. But he also meant something else. "You're engaged," she said. "I'll break it. And ruin her." "She's not ruined. She's redirected. It was an arrangement, Evelyn, not a promise. I won't be a replacement, Thomas. You wouldn't be. Wouldn't I?" Her voice was steel now. "You didn't come back for me. You came back for duty. And when you saw me again, you remembered what it felt like to want something more than a contract." "That's not true." "It's not enough," she said. He looked away, towards the darkening fields. "Then what is?" She stepped back. "When you know, Thomas, you'll find me." She didn't say goodbye. Not this time, because it wasn't over. Not yet. The letter arrived before sunrise, sitting on the hall table like a threat. Evelyn didn't open it until the third time she passed her desk. The handwriting was fine, elegant, and unfamiliar. She unfolded the page. "I hope yesterday was a moment of madness. Otherwise, I'm afraid it was a declaration of war. H." No signature was needed. She knew who it was. She read it twice. Then she folded it again, sliding it under the ledger. That afternoon, Clara arrived. As Evelyn's cousin and only real friend, she didn't wait to be announced. She brought biscuits, wildflowers, and gossip, in that order. "You haven't told me anything," Clara said, tugging her shawl tighter as she sat on the sofa, "which means everything is happening." "I've told you plenty," Evelyn replied, pouring the tea. "You've told me there was snow and a stable and some gloves. That's not a story, Evelyn. That's foreplay." Evelyn didn't answer. Clara leaned in, her voice dropping. "Is it true he proposed?" "It wasn't a proposal. He offered marriage." "It wasn't an offer either," Evelyn said. "Then what was it?" Evelyn picked up the biscuit tin and moved it to the windowsill just to have something to do with her hands. A reflex. "That sounds like a yes in denial." Evelyn turned to face her. It was a man panicking because he remembered who he used to be. "And who you used to be?" "I'm not that girl anymore." Clara softened. "You're still allowed to want things. Wanting gets people ruined." "No," Clara said firmly. "Silence does." They both paused at the same time. Outside, the sound of hooves crunched on the gravel. Evelyn stood, but she didn't move to the door. A knock echoed through the house. The maid opened the drawing-room door a moment later. "There's a visitor, miss." "Who is it?" Evelyn asked. The maid hesitated, looking nervous. Lady Fortin rose. Clara's eyebrows went up so high, they nearly vanished. Evelyn smoothed her skirts once, then nodded. "Send her in." Helena entered like she owned the house, which was almost true, depending on which man Evelyn surrendered to, the Duke or the Baron. Helena was dressed for town, not country. Every pin in place, gloves spotless, eyes sharp. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Helena said. "You are," Evelyn replied, standing her ground. "But I'll allow it." Clara rose from the sofa. "I should go." "No," Evelyn said without looking at her friend. "Stay." Helena glanced at the tea service. "How quaint." "Say what you came to say," Evelyn said. "I didn't come to fight." "Then why are you here?" "To understand." "Understand what?" "What it is you think you're doing," Helena said, stepping closer. Clara stood straighter. She's not obligated to answer that. Helena ignored Clara entirely. "You've stirred something that cannot be unstirred, Miss Hargrave." "I haven't stirred anything," Evelyn said calmly. "He came to me. Men don't come back unless they're encouraged." "Is that what you believe?" "I know it, and I know how this ends." Evelyn crossed to the hearth and rested a hand on the mantel. "Then why are you here?" Evelyn asked again. Helena's voice dropped, losing its polish for just a second. "Because I won't lose him." "You never had him." Helena blinked once, slowly. "You think love wins." "I think love remembers." "You can have memory," Helena said, her ice returning. "I'll take the title. I've worn his name longer than you think." Silence filled the room. Helena adjusted her gloves, ensuring they were perfectly smooth. It's not over. I know. Helena turned and left without waiting for a dismissal. Clara waited until the front door clicked shut. Then she let out a long breath. That woman is one misplaced pin away from combustion, Clara said. Evelyn exhaled, her shoulders finally dropping. She's right. Clara stepped closer. Not about everything. She knows how to play this world, Clara. You don't need to play it, Clara said gently. You only need to survive it. Evelyn looked down at her hands, resting on the mantel. For the first time in weeks, her own gloves were off, and her hands were shaking. The invitation was printed on linen stock, delivered by hand, and sealed with Baron Wiltham's crest. Evelyn didn't open it immediately. When she finally did, the words felt clinical. You are cordially invited to dine at Wiltham Hall, Saturday next. A private dinner for private matters. She read it twice, then once more. Her father cleared his throat from the armchair. You'll accept, I assume. You assume too much, Father. He's being generous. He's being strategic. You think they're different? Her father asked. Evelyn folded the card and set it aside on the table. You've already agreed to something, haven't you? She said. He didn't answer. He just turned the page of his book. Later, when the sky had dimmed and the lamps were lit, Jonas appeared in the entry hall with a dusting of frost on his coat. He tipped his cap. Letter, miss. From Carringham House. No, miss, from the Duke himself. She took it, feeling the weight of the paper. Upstairs, she sat on the edge of her bed and broke the seal. I shouldn't have said it. Not like that. Not then. But I meant it. Let me prove it. Not with titles. Not with words. Just come. Tomorrow. The orchard. Before light. Tea. She stared at the page. Then she set it down beside the Wiltham card. 2 invitations. 2 futures. The next morning, Evelyn didn't go to the orchard. She went to Wiltham Hall. The footman led her into the smallest dining room, still twice the size of Fairthorn's parlour. The fire was lit. The silver gleamed. Cedric Wiltham poured the wine himself. You look lovely, Wiltham said. I didn't come to be flattered. No, but you came. She sat. He didn't waste time. You know what I'm offering, Evelyn. I know what you're buying. Your name would be preserved, Wiltham said, sliding a glass toward her. Your father would be spared public embarrassment. Fairthorn would be protected. And in return, you stand beside me, you smile, you become useful. And if I say no, then Carringham loses a river, he said calmly. And your tenants lose their harvest. He sipped his wine. Evelyn's voice didn't waver, though her hands were cold. You're threatening me. I'm informing you. Of what? That your choices aren't really choices anymore. She stood up abruptly. I haven't agreed. You will. And if I don't? Wiltham smiled faintly. Then I'll ask your father. He's much more reasonable. She left without saying goodbye. Outside, the wind had picked up. The snow that hadn't fallen yesterday began now, sharp and angled. She returned to Fairthorn, her hands red and her throat raw from the cold. In the entry, a second letter waited. Another from Thomas. She opened it standing right there in the hall. You didn't come, but I waited. I always do, with you. Helena has gone back to London. The engagement is off. There's no one left between us but time, and time is not a good enough reason anymore. Let me see you. I'll come tonight. If you don't wish it, send no reply. But if the lamp in the orchard is lit, I'll know. She read the last line again. If the lamp is lit, I'll know. She stood there a long time, the letter trembling slightly in her hand. Then she turned, climbed the stairs, and went to the drawer where the old orchard lamp had been kept for 10 years. She held the cold metal in her hands. She set it on the table. And for the first time in months, she didn't know what to do. She lit the lamp at dusk. It sat on the edge of the orchard wall, the flame trembling behind the glass. A faint halo stretched into the frost-heavy dark. Evelyn watched it flicker from her window. Then she walked away. No decision ever felt like one, not in the moment. It just felt like the next necessary breath. In the drawing room, the clock ticked louder than usual. Her father had gone to bed early. Clara hadn't written. Even the fire burned quietly, as if not wanting to intrude on her thoughts. By the time she stepped out into the cold, her gloves were deep in her coat pocket and her hands were bare. The orchard path was narrow, familiar, worn smooth by memory. He was already there. Thomas stood by the old plum tree, his coat unbuttoned, his collar turned up against the wind. The snow was soft beneath his boots, and the lamp glowed behind him like something sacred. "You came," Thomas said. "You waited?" "I always do." She didn't answer. "Not yet." "I didn't know if you would," he admitted. "I didn't know either." They stood in silence. It was not a comfortable silence. Not yet. But it wasn't angry anymore. He stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "I was going to marry Helena," Thomas said. "I know. I'm not now." "I know that too. I broke it off the morning after the dance." "Because of me?" "Because of me, Evelyn." She looked down at the snow. "I want you to understand something," Thomas said, his voice rough. "What I asked you before, it wasn't charity or panic. It felt like both. It wasn't. I asked because I've never wanted anything with the same clarity. Not even Carringham." She folded her arms, not to close off, but to hold herself still. "And if I say no," she asked, "then I'll grieve, and I'll stay, and I'll serve, and I will never ask you again." He meant it. She saw that in his eyes. "But I'll still want you," he added quietly. "Always." She stared at him, at his hands, at the man he was now, and the boy she had loved. They weren't the same, neither was she. "I lit the lamp," she said. "That doesn't mean yes." "I know. It means I haven't decided." "I'll wait," Thomas said. "For the rest of my life, if that's what it takes." "Don't say that." "It's true. You waited too long once. And I lost you. You're not entitled to get me back, Thomas." "I know. And I'm not sure I want to be with someone who knows so much." He smiled a little, a sad, broken thing. "Then tell me something I don't know." She stepped closer, just one pace. The lamp behind them flickered as the wind shifted. "I wore the gloves for 3 days straight when they arrived," she whispered. "I even slept in them." His breath caught. "I thought they meant something," she continued. Then nothing else came. Not the letter. Not you. Just silence. "I sent 3 letters, Evelyn. My father burned the first." "I figured." She took another step, closing the distance. "I've spent the last 12 years surviving. That's not a life, Thomas. It's a sentence." "Then let me be the pardon." She looked up. His face was soft in the dark, his blue eyes reflecting the lamp's glow. "You left me once," she said. "I won't again. You gave up everything for your duty. I'm giving it back for you. You may regret it. I regret everything but you." She didn't move. Not yet. Then, slowly, she reached for his hand. His skin was warm against her cold fingers. The cold didn't matter anymore. Only the fact that he didn't let go. And in the quiet, between breath and silence, she said the thing she never thought she would say again. "I still love you." Thomas didn't speak. He just held her hand tighter and pulled her in. And this time, she didn't pull away. By morning, half the county had heard about the orchard lamp, but Evelyn woke to something worse. She found 2 letters on her tray and a maid too nervous to make eye contact. The first was from Clara. "You fool, you glorious, glorious fool. I'm bringing cake." The second was unsigned. "Your father has agreed to Lord Wiltham's terms. The banns will be read Sunday." She didn't finish reading. The page crumpled in her hand. Downstairs, her father was already dressed. He stood by the hearth, looking older than usual, not from illness, but from resignation. "You said nothing," Evelyn said, her voice shaking. "I did what had to be done." "No," she said quietly. You did what was easier. He turned slowly to face her. You think I enjoyed it? I think you didn't fight. We can't afford to fight, Evelyn. We can't afford to sell me to a man I despise. Then what would you have me do? He snapped, his control breaking. Watch our home fall apart out of pride? Out of some girlhood fantasy of love? That girlhood fantasy is the only thing that's ever felt real in this house, she said. He didn't speak. I won't marry him, Father. You don't have a choice. I'll make one. He laughed once. It was a dry, bitter sound. And what will Carringham do? Offer you a cottage and a ruined name? She turned to go toward the door. I won't be here for the reading of the banns, she said. His voice stopped her cold. Then don't come back at all. She didn't turn around. She just kept walking. That afternoon, Carringham's carriage waited outside the Fairthorn gates. Jonas stood beside it, his hands clenched at his sides. He didn't speak. He just opened the door. Thomas was waiting at the estate. Not in the drawing room, but at the stables. He met her halfway, his breath visible in the biting cold. I heard, Thomas said immediately. I didn't accept. He doesn't need you to. She shook her head, panic rising. It won't hold, Thomas. He has the church, he has the papers, he has your father. I don't care. He'll take everything. Then let him. Thomas stepped closer, grabbing her shoulders gently. I want to marry you, he said. Properly. Publicly. Today. Her eyes widened. I've written the license, Thomas said. I have the witnesses. The vicar is waiting in the chapel right now. That's mad, he finished for her. Yes, but it isn't untrue. She hesitated. You're serious. I don't know how else to be. And what about the scandal? She asked. I've lived through worse. And Helena? She's gone. She won't fight us. She doesn't have to. Society will. He exhaled, pulling her closer. Then let them talk. She didn't speak. She just looked at him. Really looked. The boy she had loved had never been this bold, but the man before her was terrifyingly certain. She reached up slowly, brushing snow from his collar. If we do this, she said, there's no undoing it. I don't want it undone. You'll lose standing, Thomas. I'll gain you. You make it sound so simple. He smiled. You never were simple, Evelyn. She laughed once, a sound half-sob. Then she whispered, Take me to the chapel. He held out his hand. Always. They turned toward the house, hand in hand. But as they reached the path, a figure stepped from the tree line, a dark cloak, sharp eyes, and an expression that was entirely unreadable. Wiltham. He looked from Thomas to Eveline. Then he looked past them, toward the lit chapel windows, and he smiled. It wasn't a smile of surprise, it was a smile of preparation. The chapel was cold, but it wasn't empty. 2 witnesses waited by the front pew. One was the stablemaster, hat in hand. The other was Thomas's solicitor, looking anxious. The vicar stood at the altar, his hands folded and his eyes steady. Evelyn hesitated at the threshold. Thomas offered his hand. Are you sure? No, she said honestly. But I'm certain. He smiled. That's better anyway. They stepped forward together. The vows were simple, lines that felt too short for everything they had endured. Still, Evelyn spoke them with clarity. She didn't stumble. She didn't look back. Until the doors opened. Wiltham. He stepped into the chapel like a man entering his own parlor, gloved, unhurried, and utterly calm. Don't stop on my account, Wiltham said, his voice echoing off the stone. I do love a good ending. Thomas stepped forward, shielding Eveline. You don't belong here. Neither do you, Duke, not after what you've done. I've done what I should have done a decade ago. Ah, Wiltham said, slowly removing his gloves. Romance, the great excuse. Evelyn stood still. She wouldn't flinch, not in front of him. Wiltham turned to her. Lady Hargrave, or is it Carringham already? Did you bring witnesses, or just resolve? I brought my name, she said. and I'm keeping it." He smiled faintly. "You think this is over. I think you lost, Lord Wiltham." "No, you made your play. I'm simply making mine." He reached into his coat and removed a folded document. It was sealed in heavy red wax. Thomas's jaw tightened. "What is that?" "A writ, hand-delivered from London, signed by Lord Tellington." "The Lord Chancellor?" Evelyn asked, her breath catching. Wiltham nodded. "Yes. You see, Carringham may belong to you." He looked at Thomas. "But the roads to it belong to Parliament, and I have friends who dislike messy unions." "You're bluffing," Thomas said. Wiltham handed the document to the vicar. "Have a look, Reverend." The vicar opened it slowly. Then his face paled. "This is a formal objection," the vicar stammered. "Your Grace, he's filed an injunction against the title." Wiltham didn't answer. He didn't need to. Evelyn stepped forward. "You'd use politics to stop a marriage?" "I'd use anything." Thomas took Evelyn's hand again, gripping it tight. "Then we'll wait, and we will marry tomorrow or next week." "You won't," Wiltham said softly, "because if you marry while under injunction, your title will be challenged. The Commission has already begun a review of your uncle's debts." "That's absurd." "It's legal." Evelyn looked between them. "You're threatening to strip him of his name?" "Just the parts he values," Wiltham said. Silence filled the chapel, the kind that tightens at the throat. Then Thomas spoke, calm but cold. "You won't win." Wiltham turned to go. "I don't have to win, Thomas. I just have to stall." He left the chapel. The heavy oak door closed behind him with the soft finality of a slammed gate. No one spoke. The vicar folded the document carefully, his hands shaking. Evelyn let go of Thomas's hand. "We can fight this," Thomas said, turning to her. She shook her head once. "No, he's playing for delay, not victory. So we wait. Until when? Until I can clear the claim. Until I can secure the title." She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want a war, Thomas. You have me. And what does that cost?" His silence was answer enough. Outside, the snow had started again, slow, relentless, covering every path forward and freezing the world in place. Fairthorn looked smaller when she returned. Maybe it always had been. Or maybe Evelyn had outgrown it while standing beside a man who had once carried her whole heart in silence. The lamps hadn't been lit. The drawing-room fire was dead. No staff met her at the door. Only her father remained. He didn't speak. Neither did she. The letter from Wiltham sat open on the mantel. She didn't touch it. "How bad is it?" Evelyn asked. "I told him you wouldn't agree," her father said. "You told him too late." He looked up slowly, his face gray in the fading light. "You defied him, Evelyn. You defied all of them." "I loved one of them first." His mouth twitched. It wasn't a smile. It was something else entirely. "Wiltham still has options," her father said. "He doesn't have me." They stood in silence. Then he spoke again, his voice rough. "You'll regret it. One day. Maybe. Security isn't shameful. Neither is survival." He left the room without another word. Evelyn sat in the cold. She didn't cry. Not yet. At Carringham, Thomas stood in the map room. The fire burned low. The seal from Wiltham's writ still rested on the table like a brand. His solicitor poured another glass of brandy. "You can stall them, Your Grace," the solicitor said. "I don't want to stall." "You can buy time." Thomas ran a hand through his hair. "I had time. I wasted it. Wiltham's claim is weak. But it's loud." The solicitor hesitated. "The House of Lords doesn't like noise, especially from dukes with debts." Thomas stared at the glass in his hand. "Then I'll clear them. You'll bleed yourself dry." "I already did." The solicitor nodded once, grim. "You'll need her dowry." Thomas looked up sharply. "She has none," Thomas said. "I never asked for one." "You will if this drags on." Thomas didn't answer. Instead, he crossed the room, opened the drawer at the desk, and removed a worn envelope, sealed with wax but never sent. He broke it open. Inside was a note and a ribbon, pale blue, faded with years, but kept safe. 3 days passed. No letters came. On the 4th day, Clara arrived, wet with snow and breathless. "You need to see this," Clara said, shaking off her cloak. Evelyn looked up from the ledger. "I'm not accepting anything, Clara. Just read." Clara handed her the paper. It was folded once. It wasn't signed. But Evelyn knew the writing instantly. "They can take the land, they can stain the name, but they cannot rewrite the orchard, or the gloves, or the girl who never needed rescuing. I won't fight Wiltham for power. I'll fight him for you, but only if you still want me." Beneath it, there was no flourish, no seal, just one sentence in smaller ink. "Meet me at the plum tree." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She stood slowly. She laid the letter flat on the desk. She smoothed the edges with shaking fingers. Then she looked at Clara. "I need a coat." Clara stared at her. "Now?" "Yes. You'll freeze, Evelyn. I've done colder things." Outside, the wind whipped the bare trees, howling against the walls of the house. Evelyn didn't care. She was done surviving. Now she would choose. The plum tree hadn't bloomed in years. It stood near the orchard wall, bent slightly with age, one branch splintered from the last storm. The ground beneath it was frozen solid. There were no footprints yet. She was first. Evelyn stood in the grey light, her hands folded, her breath ghosting the air. The wind tugged at her skirts, biting through the wool, but she didn't move. Behind her, the fields stretched toward Carringham. Empty. She waited. A long time passed. Then the sound of hooves broke the silence. She turned. Thomas dismounted without haste. He wore no coat, just him, his boots muddied, his hair windswept. He looked like he'd run the whole way on memory alone. "I thought I was too late," Thomas said, his chest heaving. "You're not." He stepped forward. She didn't move. "I have nothing left to give you, Evelyn," he said. "Wiltham has the courts. He has the leverage. I have no land, no rank, no certainty." "You gave me the gloves," she said softly. "They weren't enough. They were everything." He exhaled, shaking his head. "I almost didn't come." "Why?" "Because I thought you deserved someone who could protect you. And I thought I needed protecting." They stood in silence. The wind howled between them. Then Evelyn reached into her pocket. She pulled out a pale blue ribbon. It was faded, folded, worn soft by time. "You gave me this too," she said. "The day before you left." Thomas stared at it. "I tied it in your hair. You were furious. I hated how neat it looked." "You kept it?" She looked at him. "I kept everything." He reached for her hand. She let him take it. "I don't know what happens after this," Thomas said. "We live under Wiltham's shadow. Not if we burn it down." He smiled, tired but hopeful. "You always were the braver one." "I had to be." He pulled her closer, just enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. "I asked you once," he said, "and I meant it." She nodded. "Ask again." "I want to marry you." "Then you will." He kissed her, not with hunger, but with reverence. It wasn't a beginning. It wasn't a rescue. It was a return. When they pulled apart, she touched his face gently, tracing the line of his jaw. "No more waiting," she said. "No more silence. No more gloves." Thomas looked down at her hands and laughed softly. "You're not wearing them. I don't need them anymore." The wind picked up, swirling the snow around them. She stepped beneath the plum tree, her boots pressing into the fresh white powder. He followed. Behind them, Fairthorn stood quiet. Ahead, Carringham waited. It would be hard. They both knew that. Reputation, politics, inheritance, all of it would press against them, but not between them. Not anymore. They walked back toward the house together, side by side, and the tree behind them bent gently in the wind. Still standing, still theirs.
We were summer soft, we were barefoot brave, laughing where the orchard bent and swayed. You carved a promise where the bark runs deep, and I believed in the kind of love you keep.
Then seasons turned and the world grew loud. Silk and duty wrapped you like a shroud. I learned to smile with my hands held still, to want you quiet because wanting you will.
Under the plum tree,
I learned your name like prayer.
under the plum tree,
I left my girlhood there.
if you come back with a crown and a colder way, I'll still remember what your silence wouldn't say. The fruit may bruise, the branches may bend, but the plum tree knows how true love breaks and mends. So meet me where we began, if you're still you. Under the plum tree, I'll be waiting, not for you. Tonight we stand where the candlelight lies,
Polite little words and dangerous eyes,
your gaze is a storm you refuse to confess,
and mine is the calm that survives the mess.
I wear my gloves like a vow I won't break,
A shield for the heart you once knew how to take. And you, so careless, so practiced, so grand, still tremble with longing, you won't let your hands.
I watch my letters turn to ash and gold, watch my softness learn to grow a spine. I stopped believing that love means hold, and started believing it means be mine. You speak of duty like it's holy wine,
But your voice still cracks when you say you're fine.
and every miss is a knife dressed neat, because you're standing close and refusing to meet. Under the plum tree,
I learned your name like prayer.
under the plum tree,
I left my girlhood there.
if you come back with a crown and a cold away, I'll still remember what your silence wouldn't say. The fruit may bruise, the branches may bend, but the plum tree knows how true love breaks and mends. So meet me where we began, if you're still you. Under the plum tree, I'll be waiting, not for you.
There's rain in the garden, silver and thin, like heaven itself. Can't decide where to begin. I hear your footsteps the way I hear fate. Too late, too near, too hard to hate.
Forgiveness isn't a door flung wide, it's a careful step with your pride set aside. It's choosing the brave thing nobody sees, not pleading, not punishing, just finally free.
Say the thing you kept behind, polished smiles. Say the thing that cost us all those miles. Not with grandeur, no, not with show, with one honest breath and nowhere to go.
And if tomorrow comes dressed in new light,
If you choose the truth over borrowed right, then meet me again where the old vows stay, where the plum tree blossoms after pain.
I won't be a
secret you visit at night. I won't be the almost that haunts your life. If you reach for me, let it be with your name. Not a whisper, not a half love, not shame. One step, fully, no turning around.
Or leave me here, still standing proud under the plum tree.
I learned your name like prayer.
Under the plum tree,
I left my girlhood there.
if you come back with a crown and a colder way, I'll still remember what your silence wouldn't say. The fruit may bruise, the branches may bend, but the plum tree knows how true love breaks and mends.
So meet me where we began, if you're still you.
Under the plum tree, I'll be waiting not for you.